Hello, everybody. Welcome to my first review of 2021, my first official movie that I've seen in 2021. I'll be reviewing it today. Excuse me, my hair is all messed up. I've been in just to give some backstory, because I'll be posting a news collaboration video tomorrow as well, which I filmed last night, and I'm filming this today, which is on the 7th, and will be published today on the 7th. I'm in a little bit of a funk right now. Needless to say, you shouldn't be interacting with a lot of people. I don't have COVID, don't worry, but I just was in a bit of a funk. I feel a lot better now. I'm just, just had about 2 days of sitting in my room, caught a little bit of a cold or something. So forgive me if I seem a little, disoriented, but that's not going to stop me from doing this review, because I have some things to say about this particular film. And that film we're going to talk about today is Pieces of a Woman. Just got dropped today by Netflix, and it stars Vanessa Kirby as well as Shia LaBeouf, Benny Safdie, and a whole bunch of other people. I'm going to say what the movie's about because the trailer decided to tell you what the movie was about. So I'm just going to divulge what the movie's about because I think it's pretty clear from the trailer and from other things. But if you don't want to know what the movie's about, I'm going to wave my hands once we're done with talking about the story. And then I'll wave my hand again so you guys can, start listening. So we're talking about the story right now. So if anybody doesn't want to know the story, here we go. Pieces of a Woman is about a birth in a house, a house birth, and a household birth, and it's about the aftermath of the loss of a child and the trauma and the feelings that come with it, particularly through the eyes of Vanessa Kirby's character, and in some respects through Shia LaBeouf's character as well. We see how these people grieve. We see how they handle their emotions, and ultimately where their emotions take them, and why they end up going certain directions with their life because of said tragedy, and how it opens up new paths for these people. That's pretty much what it is in a nutshell. I was gonna say more, but that's pretty much what it is. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's all the story stuff. So in terms of my experience with it, though, I have to say that the first thing that I really loved about it, that was setting me up for something quite good, was the opening. You probably heard about it a lot. The first 30 minutes. It is heartbreaking. The opening is incredibly heartbreaking, and is the emotional pull that I was hoping that the film would give me. It is quite emotionally resonant. You feel pretty much those first 20-30 minutes very, very much. It's, I would say, rather raw in some cases. And you just feel the weight being pushed on these characters, the tragedy. It's just you feel everything in those first 20 or 30 minutes right out the gate. And a lot of it has to do also with the performances. I think that Shia LaBeouf is very good here. I think he's always interesting to watch. If you guys watch my last news thing, you know that I have quite a love for Shia LaBeouf as a performer. So it comes as no surprise to me that Shia LaBeouf is so natural here. Like, he's very, very natural. We'll get to Vanessa Kirby in a second because I have some thoughts about her. But the other component that I have to say about the film that I found quite good was the score. I found the score to be quite fitting for the film, and it reminded me of another film, which we will bring up also later because that may have impacted my viewing a little bit. But in talking about Vanessa Kirby right now, there is a lot of talk for her right now. There's a lot of people that are discussing about her, Oscar talk and all this stuff. I will say this. I found her compelling enough. I think that she hits and misses. There are moments where I found her really good, particularly towards the end. But throughout it, I found her delivery to be a 50-50 for me. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it felt forced. Sometimes it just didn't come off as natural as Shia LaBeouf. When Shia LaBeouf pops up on screen, everything he does feels natural. everything he does, like every mannerism that he does, the way he talks to Vanessa, it just feels like a natural conversation. Where Vanessa feels more like she's trying, like she's acting. Shia is just talking, and I love when someone is just talking versus acting, if that makes sense. Um, and I think that Vanessa finds her stride at certain points, but I also do believe that it is not um, as well rounded as I think a lot of other people are painting it out to be. Now, I think that I think she's good in the film, but if you were to tell me like, oh, does she deserve an Oscar nomination? I don't personally think so. I think that she's good in the piece, but not Oscar worthy in my particular opinion. Um, Now, as I said at the beginning, the opening is heartbreaking. It's a great setup. However, once you get past that setup, that's where the film begins to fall apart because um, there's a lot of issues that happen beyond after the opening occurs. For starters, I mean, one of the main issues that I have with the film is that, as I stated, after that ending or after that opening, it kind of becomes cliched because it's it loses its grip after that opening, and you start to see the film kind of turn into pieces as it's kind of funny, um, because it starts to give you sprinkles of what it could have been, and you have like a 30-minute opening that tells you exactly what the film could have been. But then throughout the rest of the film, you're kind of given pieces throughout of, hey, this is what it was or at the beginning, and this is certain elements that we could show you, but we're not really going to show you. We're going to focus on these elements that are just very familiar. And I think that ultimately the handle of said tragedy is just not as enticing for me because I just felt it to be so familiar. I've seen that story before, and I've seen that resolution before. I've seen this type of drama before, and I just didn't like that. I didn't like that it felt so familiar after that opening, and it just kind of lost me at that point. The other thing that I have to say, I don't really like to compare it to any films, but I kept getting this vibe throughout the film, and I think that it is, in fact, influence on the film, but I do think it kind of interfered with my experience with it, and that is with Manchester by the Sea. It's very apparent that the film is inspired by Manchester by the Sea. I mean, tonally speaking, it is trying so hard to be Manchester by the Sea, but it does not reach the heights that Manchester by the Sea delivers because Manchester by the Sea knows its own flavor. It knows its own style. It knows the type of story that it wants to tell, and it knows all the dimensions that it needs to hit and all the layers that it needs to present. Pieces of a Woman, just to put it lightly, only knows one piece of its story. It only knows one idea of its story, and it doesn't try to go deeper within that. There are sprinkles of it, as I said, there's ideas throughout of what the film could have been. Like, there's a line where I believe it should have been the ending. Like, honestly, I think that this line should have been the ending. I won't really spoil the context of it, but the line is, she smelt like an apple. That particular line, that should have been the last thing we heard, in my particular opinion, because I didn't like the ending. I felt it was like, it was how do I say it? It was something that just kind of went against the opening and kind of went against the feeling of what and the tone and the narrative of where the film was going. Because, as I said, it bears a lot of resemblance to Manchester by the Sea tonally, but then it kind of does an ending that I just found too easy. I just found it too easy for this character. I wanted her to experience a lot more, in realistic terms, how someone would deal with such tragedy in their life. And I feel like adding that last line at the very end would have been so heartbreaking and so that would have brought in some emotional pullback because throughout majority of the film, after that opening is done, you're just kind of emotionally distant from it. You're invested in those first 30 minutes, but then you become rather distant for majority of that film, and I didn't like that. Um, so while the opening leaves a striking impression of what is to happen, because it is, the opening leaves like a really good impression for you when you walk into it. You're just just gripped and thrilled and just invested. What unfolds in Piece of a Woman are, as the title suggests, pieces. Pieces of what it could have been. For beyond that breathtaking opening sequence, you're presented to a story that is held down by its cliches and unsatisfying portrayal of events, even if the performances are interesting enough to follow and see through, and the score being quite well done, if I may add. This is no Manchester by the Sea, and it sure tries to be, versus trying to find its own proper footing and not trying to fit in where others succeeded in their own way.